beyond where I pinched it. There'll be some material in front as well. So someplace around here, I'm just going to tie it on. So with that pinch wrap, I'm just going to hold it very tightly, bring the thread between my thumb and index, my thumb and the shank, bring it back down on the other side between my index finger and the shank. I can do that a second time, but generally one good wrap, as long as I maintain tension on the bobbin, you can see it's in place. No big deal, all right? Put another 2 or 3 wraps right in that spot just to hold it. Take my material, I'm gonna lift it up a little bit, and I'm gonna wrap my thread down to about the middle of the shank, and I'm gonna do that again. And again, with a little pinch wrap between my fingers, straight down. Again, with that one wrap, you can see how it has secured it. Another 2 or 3 wraps, and that's it. Lift the material up one more time and put some thread wraps down on the shank of the hook itself. Now, when I bring it forward, you can see that, but I'm not going to go all the way to the eye of the hook. I'm going to leave a little space up here just so that you can finish the fly, whether you use a whip finish or you use a half hitch tool. I'm going to do it one more time with that pinch wrap. Hold it between my 2 fingers, up and down. It's secured. Go ahead and put a couple more wraps of thread on it. And then what I like to do is just lift that up and put a couple more thread wraps under the material. And now I can secure it. Now you can secure it one of 2 ways. You can either, as I said, use your half hitch tool, the tool that has a little circle in it. Make a nice little half hitch, bring it up to the shank of the hook, slide it off, and do that. Or if you're comfortable and you know how to use the whip finisher, I can take my whip finisher, put it on it. What I generally would do then is just drop my bobbin right onto my vise. Stop that. Lift this up, a couple of 3, 4, 5 wraps. And that's it for the most part. Take my scissors and clip this off. The last thing, you can leave it that length if you want to. A lot of times you'll see that the distance from the rear tie-in area and the front tie-in area is equal to about the shank of the hook. So what I generally do when I want to measure something with the shank of the hook is just take my material back to where I want it and clip it and get rid of it. Take the forward material to where I want it and go ahead and just clip it off. And I've got my San Juan worm. Last thing to do so it doesn't unravel is I take a little lighter and very carefully just touch the tip of it. I can't do it in the vise here, so I'm just going to have to take it out and just touch it again. And that'll just secure it so that we don't have to worry about it unraveling while we catch all those fish with it. And here's your San Juan worm. Simple enough. If anybody has any questions while I'm going through this, please feel free to ask, and I will try to answer them. Okay. So that's the first one. San Juan worm.
Okay, now, can I make this bigger or I have to wait?
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Now, the next one we're going to tie that I was asked to tie is what they call the zebra midge.
Oh, sorry, Bill, I missed a question for you.
Oh, go ahead.
Is it the same as making the worm with a rubbery material?
Yeah, you can make them out of the squirmy, wormy material. All right. That's just one of the newest materials that are on the market today, and that works fine. So you can make a San Juan worm with that material as well. It wouldn't make any difference at all. Okay.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So the next thing we're going to tie right now is a zebra midge. And again, I'm tying this 1 or 2 ways, and I'll explain as we go through. You'll notice that the zebra midge has a rib on it, which the previous fly did not have, and it also has a bead on it. This hook that I'm using, again, is a big hook. It's the 2457, which is the heavier hook. And I'm putting a bead on it as well. So it is a little bit heavier hook. And this has a little bit of a barb. It shouldn't be a problem because on this size hook, I'm actually using what they call a 1/8 of a inch bead. The only thing about putting a bead on it is when you put the bead on it, let's see if I can do this without falling. There it goes. Okay. And usually will use my tweezers. Another way of doing it, if you wanted to, is you can put your hook in the vise like such, and then you can just take the bead and put it over the point. All right. Sometimes when you do that, you'll find that the barb on the hook is a little bit too high and you can't get the bead over it. And if that's the case, you'll have to then crush the bead with a pliers or something like that. So there's our bead on the hook. The other thing to remember about the bead is that when you look at your beads, you'll notice that the beads have obviously two holes. One hole diameter is smaller than the other. All right, you got a small hole on one side. Where are we? There we are. Okay. One small hole, and then the back side, in this case, is the larger hole. Whenever you put it on the hook, always put it on with the smallest hole first. This way, when you put it on, the bead will not slide over the eye of the hook. All right. As you can see in this picture right now, the bead is jammed right up against the hook eye. So in this one, we're going to use a black thread. So again, I'm just going to take my black thread, and the size of the thread that you're using is dependent really upon the size of the hook. All right, I'm using a rather big hook here, so I'm using 6/0 basically thread. You could use 8/0 if you're comfortable with it, but again, I'm just going to use that jam knot. Put this on as such, and now when I put it on, I'm going to snap that off. Oh, yeah, right. And here, when I wrap these thread wraps, it's hard to see it, but I'm trying to get those thread wraps one next to the other as I bring this back. Because on this particular fly, the body of the fly itself is actually the thread. So overall, I want to keep it so that I don't see any of the hook shank coming through it. Then I'm going to bring it back up to the center. Now, since this has a rib on it, I'm going to use some silver wire. And again, the size of the wire depends upon the size of the hook. In this particular one, I'm using brassy silver wire. And what I'm going to do is, again, one way of putting this on is to pinch it. I can go ahead and hold it over the shank, bring the thread up between my fingers and down, and pinch that material right where I want to place it. The other thing I could do is, because this is stiff material, I could literally take that material and almost thread a needle. I'm putting it under the shank of the hook, in my case, to the right side of the thread, and then gently bringing my thread up, I will grab it. And that'll hold it in place exactly where I want it. If I were to do it a little bit further up, like this, you notice now, you can see that the wire is beyond the eye of the hook. I could just bring it back a little bit and then go ahead and wrap it. Now what I want to do is I'm going to wrap it to the eye. And I'm going to bring this thread, as you see it, go all the way back. And I'm going to bring this into the bend of the hook a little bit, as you see there. And I'm going to continue to build this up. And I'm going to go forward towards the eye. And then I'm going to bring it back again to the same spot. And I'm going to build this up. Now remember that a zebra midge is imitating basically what we call the larva form of the insect. And for midges, the larva is very thin. It's not a fat little bug. But if we're looking at the larva of a caddisfly, the caddisfly is much fatter. So you can tie them either one of the two ways. The other thing about them is that generally the larva is not tapered. It's the same diameter from the back to the front. But we always tie it so that the forward section is a little bit bigger And the other thing we want to do with the forward section is we want to hold that bead in place. We don't want this bead to be moving all over the place as it still is. So we're going to just build up some thread right up against the bead, as you can see there, and bring this back. I'm getting a little bit of a taper. And before I go too far, I'm going to bring my thread back to what we call the head or the thorax area, depending upon the fly. And I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to start to wrap my wire around it. And in this case, I'm going to take my wire and I'm just going to go from the back and I'm going to make a couple of wraps from the back. You can see maybe 4 or 5 wraps. Again, it's a big hook. Try to space them out as evenly as we can. So I'm ribbing the fly right now and I'm going to bring it up into the thorax area and then holding it up, just tie it off. Switching hands, tying it off with my thread, a couple of thread wraps behind it, a couple of thread wraps in front of it, behind it again. Now, some people will take this material right here and they'll do what they call helicopter. They'll just twist it around and around and around until it breaks off. And it will break off most times. Seems as though every time I do it, it doesn't want to break. And especially if you're using thicker wire, it won't break as easily. One thing I would recommend not doing is taking your good scissors and going in here and clipping it off. All right? Because it's going to dull your scissors right away. A lot of times what I will do is literally just take a nail clipper and take the nail clipper and bring it right in there and clip it off. And I'm done. Now, once I've done that, I can go back here, make sure it's down. And as I said before, I'm going to build up a little bit of a head here, taper it down a little bit. And a lot of times when they tie this zebra midge, they tie it and they don't put any dubbing on it at all. You don't need the dubbing. You can just use the thread. But if you want to dub it, if you want to make it a little bit buggier looking, you can take some dubbing. All right. In this case, obviously black dubbing. And I would want to take something that's spiky. All right. I wouldn't want to use superfine, for example. I'll take some rabbit, or this happens to be what they call Zelon dubbing. And I would just take a little bit of this. Some people will wax the thread. I still just use a little bit of saliva. Take this and just put a nice little thin coat of it on. Slide it up. Do it again. Trying to get a nice little ribbon of dubbing, and then just bring it up here and go ahead and finish the dubbing as such. Okay. All right. So you created the zebra midge, and now we got to tie it off again. The thing about tying off with a bead is that at one point or another, you have to learn how to use one of the half hitch tools. I'm sorry, one of the whip finishing tools. Because at this point, well, you have to learn how to use your fingers to do it. All right. I could take this and put my fingers on top of it, twist it over, and put this in here. Let's do it right, Bill. Like that, and create the half hitch. Because you want to make sure that this half hitch or this whip finish that you're doing is behind the bead. And that's why I like to use the whip finisher. And I can just put it right in there. I don't have to get anything out of the way. I can hold it 4 or 5 turns in there. And then I can just pull that off. Tighten it up. If you want to do a second one, you can do a second one. Then go ahead and put your scissor in it and snap it off. All right. So there's your zebra midge. If you wanted to, if you didn't put the dubbing on the head, you could actually take your head cement if you wanted to, any kind of head cement that you want. This happens to be water-based, and you can coat the entire fly with the head cement to make it a little bit more durable. The other thing, which I didn't bring to the table here, is you could use some UV resin. If you're familiar with UV resin, you just put a little drop of UV resin on it and hit it with a UV light for a couple of seconds, and it makes it hard as a rock. And it also gives it a little bit of a sheen, which is nice because most of these bugs have a little bit of a sheen to their bodies as well. Okay, that's number 2. Any questions at all?
Yes. Jeff is asking, do you like to add crystal flash off the bend of the hook?
Okay, that's another variation on it. Okay, yes, you can. I actually tie them both ways, and I didn't say this before, but I've actually tied zebra midges from about a size 8, which I use a lot of times when I'm check nymphing, all the way up to a size 24. And we were actually in Colorado fishing the frying pan this summer, and the 24s were the only thing that were catching fish. We couldn't catch anything on anything higher than that. But yes, you can take this again, and at the end here, all right, another variation would just be to put a little bit of a crystal flash tail on it, okay, which would now actually imitate a little bit more of the pupil stage, all right, as they're rising in the water column a little bit. And some people will even put some crystal flash here as a wing, all right. So maybe 2 strands of crystal flash, maybe 2 strands down here, just trailing off the back of it. The thing about the crystal flash is what it does for us, if nothing else, is it creates that flash. All right, so it may get the attention of a fish. So that may be helpful in some situations or not. I've fished them both ways. They're both effective. So either one is fine. Anything else?
Nope, that was awesome. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So on to our third little fly now. And that's going to be our hare's ear. And it's going to look something like this. Let me show that. Okay. There's the hare's ear, a sample of the hare's ear. And one of the things about a hare's ear is they call it a hare's ear because they literally use the mask of a rabbit. All right. And that's where they take all of the material off of to form the body of the fly, as well as the I keep hitting this thing, the body of the fly, or the and the thorax of the fly. And that works out fine. The thing about it is that if you use the mask, you've got to take that material off the mask, and you got to trim that material off the mask, and then you got to mix it all together real well. All right, and then you can use it as dubbing. Or you can just go ahead and just buy pre-mixed hare's ear dubbing in a variety of colors. The thing about the hare's ear also is that, generally speaking, the hare's ear is tied with the tan color. That's the standard color. But there's nothing to stop you from tying the fly exactly the same way, but instead of using the tan, use black or olive, all right? Either one of those 2 colors are also quite effective as a variety or a variation to the hare's ear. Now, in this case, what I'm using here is a hook that I use a lot of times when I'm using or when I'm tying rather stone flies. All right, or when I'm tying a bead head fly. The thing about this hook right now is that it's a little bit longer. It's actually what they call a 3X long hook. And the hook that I put down on the notice that went out is a 200 3X hook, or any 3X long hook. And you can see that the curvature of the hook itself gives a nice profile for the fly. We're going to tie this as a bead head. So someplace on this table I have a bead, and I'm going to put a bead. This one happens to be a size 14. Now, since it's a 3X long hook, and it's a 14, it looks pretty big. So I'm going to go ahead and try to put a bead on this hook without losing it. And there we go. Okay. Again, when you put the bead on it, put it with the narrow side first, and then you can go ahead and put this in your vise and tighten it up. Okay. All right. Now this fly, we're going to tie it with tan thread. What I also did with this one, if I can find it, is I put a little extra wire on it. I'm using some non-toxic wire. This is lead-free wire. This is 15 thousandths of an inch, all right? So I'm just going to take a little bit of this off and put this on. Come on, stop that door. All right, so I'm going to put about, maybe half a dozen or so wraps. So I'm just going to hold it with one hand and wrap it around. And the direction that you wrap the wire, I don't think it makes any difference at all. It's totally up to you. You can keep wrapping it until it's nice and flush. And then what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to push it all the way up into the bead itself. And you have to notice what I did when I pushed it forward. I don't know if you saw what happened, but the bead was actually hanging a little bit. All right. And when I pushed it forward, let's see if this will happen. Yeah. You can see how the bead is hanging downward a little bit. All right. And if I go ahead and take this and push it forward, it kind of like centers the bead right on the hook shank. And then you can take this here if you want and continue to wrap it around, or you can go ahead and take that nail clipper and just clip it off as such and get it good and tight.
Would gluing the wire before you push it, would
What's
you
that?
want to, sorry, the question is, would you want to glue the wire before you push it forward?
Some people will glue the wire. I'm going to tell you, I don't think it makes much difference. All right. And the only reason why I don't think it makes much difference is once I put the rest of the material on here, that wire is not going to go anywhere. All right. So I know there are some people that like to put the glue on it, or put a touch of crazy glue on it just to hold it in place. Nothing wrong with that. But like I said before, it's a step that I don't usually do. All right. On some of these. All right. On some of the flies, yeah, you do, only because of the nature of the fly itself. Because once I take this wire, this thread, I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it behind the wire itself, and I'm going to build up a little bit of a dam. And then I can go ahead and snap this right off. And that dam is going to hold that wire in place. I can put some more thread right on top of it. And remember that this section of the fly here, right here, which is about 1/3 down, is what we call the thorax of the fly. The gold-ribbed hares here, basically, with its tail and everything, and the way we tie it, actually imitates a mayfly nymph. All right, and the thing about a mayfly nymph is it has a nice, robust thorax. The area in here, whoops, put it this way, I guess. The area in here, which is where the wings are actually developing right now as it's a nymph. So in this section right here is where it's going to be a little fatter anyway. So with the wire there, and then with all the other material that we put on it, it's not going to make too much of a difference. So I'm going to just build up a little bit of a dam here, and then I'm going to go back down the shank. And on this one, I'm not going to go into the bend as much. Maybe up to where the barb is, if anything. All right, and I'm going to leave that as the size of the body. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit more thread on here. And go all the way up. Now we are putting a tail on here. And the thing about the tail is I'm going to use some pheasant tail. All right. So what I'm going to do with the pheasant tail is I'm going to go ahead and take, I don't know, a nice clump of this. This is a pretty big fly. When I take the pheasant tail off, what I want to do is I want to pull the fibers perpendicular to the stem, as you can see here. All right. And what that'll do for me is get these tips almost even. They don't have to be exact. Then I can just grab them and pull them off of the stem. And now I'm going to measure this out. Now, how long do you make the tail? Here's the tail that I'm going to put on. I'm going to make this tail roughly about half the length of the body. All right. So I'm measuring this out to about there. I'm going to transfer it into my other hand as such. And now, now get the thread to where I want to tie it in. And now using that pinch wrap again, I'm going to hold my fingers over the shank, bring the thread up between my thumb and the shank, and then down on the other side. And I should have it, as you can see. And as long as I maintain that tension, I can put 1 or 2 more wraps around it, and that'll hold it in place. All right. The next thing I want to do with this is I'm going to go forward. I'm not going to cut this off. All right. You'll see in a minute why. But I'm going to bring all this material, try to keep it on top of the shank of the hook. And in order to do that, I'm going to use my material hand again, and I'm going to basically pinch wrap this all the way down, if you can see what I'm doing, all the way down to behind the bead as such. And if it shifted a little bit, because I'm wrapping from my side to the back side, the material always has a tendency to move towards the back. All right. So I just want to make sure that everything is right on top of the shank. Then I'm going to go back and fill everything in. There's one more thing I'm going to do before I attach the rib, and that is I'm going to bring this thread all the way back to where I tied it in. And one of the things I like to do with these flies, I like to pick the tail up a little bit, take this thread and bring it under the tail. See what I did there? And tuck it in there, go around one more time, and then bring it under again. So it's under between the material and the shank, and tuck it in again. And that's what I want. That's what I want to accomplish. What I did there is I put the thread wraps underneath the tail so that the tail doesn't fall down onto the shank of the hook. So it sticks out a little bit. So I put a couple of thread wraps underneath the tail so that it maintains that height. Now, since this is a gold ribbed hare's ear, we're going to take some gold wire. And again, depending upon the size of the hook will depend upon the size of the wire that you use. This is brassy, as it turns out. And again, I can do it by just sticking it between forward of the thread and under the shank of the hook, as you see. And just bring my thread right up on top of it. Yeah, okay, all right. And then just go ahead and holding my material away from the shank, I'm just going to take a couple more wraps of thread around it. Yeah. And then continue to wrap that material, creating as smooth an underbody as I can. And as I move forward, you see that I grab the rest of that material. And that's just about it. Right. Okay. You'll also notice one other thing, and I don't know if you can see this very well. Like you might be able to. Let me see. Yeah. You'll notice that when I wrapped the thread back, you see where the wire is attached to the body? It's not attached right up to the tail. I left just a little space between the tail and the material. When I dub the body, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in that space a little bit with some dubbing material. This will allow the wire, when I wrap it, not to slide back onto the tail of the hook, onto the tail. All right. If I don't do that, sometimes when you wrap it, if you're not careful, that the wire will actually slide back onto the tail. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, I could have tied the wire instead of on my side of the hook, tied it so that it went to the back side of the hook. All right. And by tying it on the back side of the hook, the same thing is true. That first wrap would be away from the tail. So either way will accomplish the same thing. So now I've got this prepared. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my dubbing. All right. And I'm going to dub this body. When I dubbed it before, I didn't mention it because it isn't usually a real problem with the type of dubbing that I did before. But a lot of times when we dub, we think we have to put a lot of material on, like that. See how much material I put on right there? don't do it. All right. What you want to do is put as thin a layer of material on the thread as you possibly can. And even that, whoops, can you see that? There it is. Might be a little bit too much. I'm going to spread this out and just spin it in one direction. And I get a nice little ribbon of dubbing. And I want, especially at the back of the hook, you know, you see how you can slide it up. If I don't wax the thread, I can slide it up very easily. If you wax it, it's going to stick and you probably can't get it up there. And I'm just going to take a little bit of material and go ahead and now wrap this a little bit. I'm going to have to add more dubbing, but that's fine. I'm going to go back here, hold this out of the way. Oops, wait, it goes. All right. See, I put one wrap of dubbing behind the wire, and now I'm going in front of the wire, and I'm going to wrap it forward. Trying to create as smooth a body as possible. And then go ahead and put some more dubbing on. Any questions while we're doing this? As I get closer to the thorax, I can put a little bit more dubbing. I can make it a little bit heavier because I want that to be heavier. I'm just going to, that's too much. And then we're just going to bring it back a little bit, okay? And now I'm going to wrap my my rib. Again, I'm going in the same direction. I could counter rib it. I can still see that. You can see the gold rib as it comes through. And I'm going to bring this into the thorax area. I'm going to tie it off. Clip it off. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take this material here that's still hanging out over the front. I'm going to fold it back. I think I need another wrap or two. There it is. Okay. I'm going to fold it back and wrap over it. And what I'm going to do is go back about 1/3 of the way. So I have my my body is about 2/3. The thorax area, which I'm going to double a little bit more, is going to be about 1/3. Sometimes you look at some of the flies and they're even at the halfway mark, and that's fine too. All right, somewhere between that 1/3 and halfway back is the size of the thorax. Once I did that, I'm going to tie it down a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and dub a little bit more dubbing for the thorax. I want this thorax to be thick. So I'm just going to put some dubbing on here. A little bit more.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
why would you want to counter wrap something?
Okay, good question. A lot of times you want to counter wrap something so that you hold that material onto the shank of the hook, all right? Instead of, I'm trying to think of an example offhand. Oh, I know. If I was wrapping this body out of, let's say I was making a pheasant tail nymph, all right? When I make a pheasant tail nymph, what I do is I take pheasant tail and I wrap it, I put it together like I did the tail, and I wrap it around the body, okay? And then I tie it off and do everything else. Then I put a rib on it. If I put the rib in the same direction as the pheasant tail is very fragile. After one fish, it's very possible that the teeth of the fish could cut into the pheasant tail and ruin your fly, all right? So with a pheasant tail, that type of material, I may want to counter wrap it. So in other words, instead of going over from my side to the far side, I'd actually start at the far side and bring it this way. All right, if you can understand that, right? So I'm wrapping it around this way. Let me do it this way. So from back here, I'm behind the fly, and I'm wrapping it this way, and I'm wrapping it same type of rib. All right, the rib, of course, is going in the opposite direction, but I'm sure the fish don't know the difference. All right, so, but by counter wrapping it, what you're doing is you're going across. The pheasant tail is wrapped this way, right? So if you think of my finger as the direction of the pheasant tail, and when I counter rib it, the ribbing is going in this direction. All right. So what happens is it's holding the pheasant tail down. All right. With the dub body, I'm not gonna lose it. All right. And it's not like if the teeth go into the dubbing. If anything, what it's going to do is it's going to make the dubbing a little bit more shaggy looking, which is fine. All right, because I want that on this kind of a fly. So does that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So you can see on this fly now, I have the thorax is a little bit thicker than the body. And then all I'm going to do to finish this fly is take this wing case, bring it over the top, pull it taut, and put my, sorry about that, guys, and put my thread wraps, as you can see, I think you can see it, right? Right over it. And tie it down good and tight, all right? If you really wanted to, you could take this back and put another couple of wraps in it. That'll secure it a little bit better. Take your scissors, trim that off. And now whip finish it. I think this actually. Now, the last thing I want to do with this fly is I'm going to take some kind of tool. It could be a tool like this, or it could just be a little piece of Velcro that's on a piece of wood. And I'm going to take this and just rough up that bottom a little bit. For this one. And by roughing up the bottom, what we're doing is we're creating a little bit more like legs. So that when this is in the water now, the water will actually make those fibers move. All right, so they'll be undulating, as they say. And when it does that, it actually appears like something that's alive. The other thing about this kind of bugginess on the fly itself is the body itself. I keep doing it on the wrong side, but the body itself, all right, we want it to be a little shaggy looking. We don't want it to be nice and tight because this imitates a mayfly, all right, or a mayfly nymph. And the thing about a mayfly nymph, if you ever put a mayfly nymph in some water in your hand, you'll notice that they have all these gills on their abdomen. All right, so in the water, those gills are moving around also, creating bubbles. So you're going to get the same effect as having something that's a little shaggy like this on your fly. And that's the gold rib tarsier. Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that was great, Bill. Thanks.
Again, on this here fly, I for one don't use head cement a lot. All right. Probably because I tie so many flies. So, but if you wanted to, you could put a little bit of head cement on this. All right, and you could do the same thing across the top of this if you're careful. Just put a little head cement on that to protect it a little bit. And as I said before, if you use UV resin, you can just put a drop of UV resin on that wing case and then hit it with the UV light. And that'll make it nice and firm so you won't lose it as easily. Okay. All right. Any questions at all? Very good.
You make it look so easy.
What?
You make it look so easy.
Practice, 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 right?
Yeah. Somebody's got all my
Kind.
five.
Yeah, that was my thoughts exactly. Right with you, Vince.
The thing about it that I found a lot of times is with a lot of these things where you're tying. I have a brother-in-law who was a plumber. All right. Now anybody who's ever worked in that kind of a field knows what his hands must look like. All right. And he had no trouble tying flies because what he learned, and as I was talking about it before, is that you learn that sometimes you don't have to use that pinch. You can, if you hold the material a certain way, you can get that material on top of the hook shank very easily. And there's nothing that says that after you put 1 or 2 wraps of thread on that material that you can't take your fingers and say, okay, I want you on top, and just twist it the way you want it. All right. And that'll get it to where, you know,
What type of ice are you using?
I'm using a Renzetti. This is a Renzetti 2000. Yeah.
Okay.
I just like this vise. Fortunately, I won it in a raffle back east, and the one that I use for travel is also a Renzetti, but it's called a Renzetti Traveler, and it works fine. The thing about this particular Renzetti, and I think you can see it on the video, and you may have noticed that it has a knob on it, and you have to use that knob. Let's see if I do this. Yeah, there it is. All right. Somehow this thing turned. But you see the knob over here?
Uh-huh.
So in order to tighten your hook in the vise, what you have to do is you have to do 2 things. One of them is you have to open this top one up, this top screw. Open that up. Put the hook in it, tighten the top one, and then you got to go on the bottom and tighten the bottom one up. All right. The newer vices like this have a cam activated, so it's a lot faster and a lot easier to actually get the hook in there. But the thing about it is that the thing I like about these vices is they have different settings, and you can tie everything up to a size 28. And there's Tom.
I'm holding up the new Rossetti in my
Tom's
picture.
got the new Renzetti. He's showing it to everybody right now. All right.
I don't see Tom.
Yeah, and Tom's has the cam on the bottom of it.
Can you
So-
see what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's the cam. You can see the cam that he has on the bottom of it, and it makes it just a lot easier to do it. The thing about it is that this vise is so strong that once you tighten these things up, I can take this hook that I have in there right now, and I could literally bend the hook if I wanted to bend it. All right,
Wow.
they're really well made. You pay a little bit more for them, but I find overall I think it's worth every penny of it.
Very nice. Nice shells, Tom.
Oh, that's my fly tying material. It's a
Very nice.
Very good. So, do any other questions from anybody?
No.
No. If you want to tie another one, we got time. If you have time to tie another one,
What do you want me to tie? Huh?
I'm
What?
not sure. You pick a fly that you enjoy tying that you have the material handy for you.
All right.
If you have time.
That's the problem, is having the material. I mean, I have the material. Anybody who's ever been to my place knows I have the material.
Yeah, you got that office.
It's just all in boxes.
Yeah, right.
here, Bill. I joined you. This is a 18 zebra.
An 18. See that? Yeah, right.
Thanks, Bill. I enjoyed it, but I have to go.
All right, very good, Jerry. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you, Jerry.
being there. All right, appreciate it.
Good seeing you, Jerry. I guess
care, all.
question, what is your favorite fly to tie?
Jeez, that's a hard question.
Yeah,
Um, favorite,
one that works.
you know, I don't honestly, I don't think I can answer that question. Um, I can tell you probably the tie that I least prefer is probably a traditional Royal Coachman. All right. Or any of the traditional East Coast flies, like a Krogorn and the Henderson, a Hendrickson, all right, a sulfur. And the reason why is because all of those flies have what we call a split wing. All right. I don't think you can see this, but the wing is actually split. All right. So you get two separate wings that come up. All right. The wings are actually split. And it just takes a lot of time to tie. All right. For me personally. All right. I mean, I've tied so many flies that probably I don't know if there is a fly that I like to tie more than something else. I mean, it's fun to tie some of these ties that I tied just now because there's not a lot to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're good, just little
So you can
productive
knock them
flies.
out. You can knock them out one right after the other. I'd have to really give that a lot of thought to say which one do I prefer the most to tie.
What about saltwater flies? Do you tie any saltwater flies
No.
if you go saltwater fishing at all?
No, I have never really tied any saltwater fishing. As it turns out, I mean, I literally moved away from Long Island. The year that the fellas that I always fished with started fishing for stripers in the Long Island Sound. So they were fishing saltwater. And so I really have never done any saltwater fly fishing.
No, because I was watching some videos of guys tying like the little crabs and stuff for permits.
Right.
And those look pretty intense to tie.
Yeah, some of them really are. And if you look at some of those bait fish patterns that Enrico Puglisi ties, and there's a couple of other fellows that tie some really nice flies for stripers. They're really it's quite a technique that they use.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, it really is.
So, well, I appreciate you doing a demonstration for us tonight. Hopefully, I know I learned a couple things.
Good.
And hopefully some other people that viewed this learned some stuff. And
well, I hope so. And if they have any questions and they want to funnel a question somehow to me, that's fine. They could probably do it through our channels, our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. That should work out fine.
Or you can email one of us and then we can forward it to Bill directly. And then you can answer there.
I'd be happy to. That would be fine. Yeah.
I'd like to add something about the Renzetti, maybe that in case somebody was interested in looking to purchase it. I'm left-handed, Bill's right-handed. This actually converts to either hand. So if you're a right-handed tie or left, and I wasn't clear when I was reading their booklet. I contacted them via email and they got on, they called me and we talked on the phone. They actually did a video for me and sent it to me step by step, how to change it over from right hand to left hand. So the company is very nice, very, 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 great people. Let's just put it that way. And, the Vice is very nice. I like it a lot. I'm still learning a little bit about it, but I do like it a whole lot. So.
One thing about to add to what Tom just said, one thing about this Vice that is very nice is that it's a true rotary Vice. It's a true rotary, which means that if you wanted to, and I don't have any big hooks here, but if you wanted to, when you put a hook in here, one of the features of using the vise is what people used to do. I mean, when I started tying, we did not have rotary vices. So if you wanted to see what was happening on the back side of your hook, you literally had to take the vise and turn it around. All right. Or you know that tool that dentists use that has a little mirror on the stick.
Uh-huh.
We actually had made a couple of those so that we can see the back side of the fly when we were tying it. But
Oh.
one of the things about a rotary is that you can always turn it over and see what's happening on the other side. You might have seen me doing that once or twice tonight. But that's not the real rotary feature of any of these vices. The real rotary feature is that you can take this vise if you wanted to, and I'm just putting some thread on here, and I could literally take this vise and go ahead and do one of these. Oops, I did it backwards. All right, let's do one of these so I can put the material on the hook. See what I'm doing? All right. And sometimes that's convenient when you've got, putting thread on it, that's not what it's meant for. But if I was putting some material on it, like a material like this material, and I wanted to put it on the body, oops. What you could do with it very simply is take it, hold it, all right, and go ahead and rotate it. So you put the material on. See what I mean? All right. You can imagine what it would be like if it was a bigger hook. So if you were working with a woolly bugger and whatnot, all right, and you don't want to keep going like this here because every time you do it, you hit your bobbin and so forth, right? Okay. It makes it a little bit easier to use the rotary feature on the vise itself. Now, the thing about the rotary feature is in order to use it and do it properly, you have to throw a half hitch into your thread, and then stop. They actually have a cradle, and I took the cradle off of this in order to do the demonstration, but they have a cradle so I can take this, and I don't know if you can't really see this, but you can take this. Once you put the half hitch in it, the thread's not going to come off the hook. All right. You can see me pulling it, and you can actually drape it over this cradle, and then you can go ahead and rotate it. No more thread gets put on the hook shank, and you can put the material on. All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Yeah. So that's one of the features of the rotary. And if you're doing woolly buggers and stuff like that, it makes it a convenience. All right. If I was taking a hackle, and I don't have any hackle here, but if I was going to put hackle like on a woolly bugger, I could do the same thing. I can attach the hackle at the back. All right. And then hold it right here and spin the vise and move it forward, and I can palm that hackle right on the shank of the hook, and then take my bobbin and tie it off. You know what I mean?
No wonder why my flies turned out so bad.
What's that?
I said, no wonder why my flies turned out like they did.
Yeah, and that's why. And one of the nice things about that is that you can see the palmering that you're doing, so you can make sure that those palmers are equal. All right. If you're just tying flies to use, it doesn't make any difference. All right. But if you're tying flies to sell, then you may want to do it. I tied flies for the shop in Circleville for a couple of years. Yeah. And if you're going to tie flies for somebody else to buy, you want to make sure that they're all uniform. So that's one of the things that you would look for. And that's one of the things that you could do with a rotary vise. The other thing that, and you can't see it because I don't have a wide angle and on this. But if I bring this down a little bit, you see this little clip here? All right. That clip is a material clip, so that if you're putting multiple pieces of material on the hook, you can attach the material to your hook shank as such, and then you can put it in this clip and hold it out of the way. Something like that. See? So there's all sorts of little features that they have on these things that just make it a little bit easier and make it more convenient for you to tie flies.
Nice. What would you say is a good starter vise for somebody that's new getting into tying?
You know, the new issue of Fly Tire magazine has a section that they just went through um, what the beginner fly tire really needs to get started. All right. And most of the vices that they put in there were in the 100 to 150 to $200 range. All right. To really to get started. Some of them were stationary vices. Some of them were rotary vices like this one. Personally, I still would say that if somebody is getting into the sport, I mean, I'm partial to the Renzetti. I mean, I've been using it for such a long time. And I don't remember, Tom, do you remember what the Renzetti cost, the Traveler, the Renzetti Traveler?
Oh, that's what I have a Renzetti Traveler.
Yeah, you have, oh, so how much, I don't know what they cost right now. As far as
I think it was 180.
180?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the Traveler. Mine's the 2000.
Yours
Mine
is,
was 325.
all right, yours is, yeah, that's what I have here. I have the 2000 also. But I'm saying as a beginner one, for under $200, you can get a Renzetti. And I think, and that Renzetti is going to last you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, especially me.
What's
But
that?
I bought another fly at Tire. I bought another vise, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't. But when I got it in, it looked okay. It came from Colorado, but comparing it, I didn't. But there was a way it felt. I felt too much plastic, too much cheap material. So I sent it back, and I talked to Bill, and I got the Renzetti. And yes, I spent more money, a lot more, almost double, about double what I had originally spent. But this is far superior in so many ways. You know.
I mean, I still have the vice, the original vice that I started tying with, back when some of you probably weren't born, but
I was.
Not you, Tom.
not you. But anyway, the thing about it is that if you're interested in the sport, I mean, that's the point here that we want to make. If you're interested in the sport, if you get yourself a good vise and you want to get yourself a good set of scissors, all right, those two things especially, I think, will keep you tying flies. You know what I mean? But if you buy one of the cheap vices, I mean, you can buy a vice in Bass Pro or Sportsman's probably for $50. All right. The thing about it is that it's not going to hold the hook as well as you want it to hold it. And it's certainly not going to be a rotary if that's what you want. All right. You're not going to be able to see the backside of the hook or anything like that. And that's why I think you want to spend the money on a decent vice, on a good vice.
I believe in the old adage: there's price and there's cost. So what is the price of something, but what does it cost you if it's not going to do what you want or hold up or be there for you when you need it? So,
and that's what I mean. Like I said, I mean, my Traveler has been, you know, any place that I've gone, I've taken my Traveler with it, and I haven't had any problem. And another thing about it is that, again, and this is probably true with other manufacturers, any good manufacturers. I had a problem with this vise because there's actually a little O-ring on the bottom of the vise that maintains the tension on the jaws. And my original Renzetti was so old that just deteriorated. And I just sent an email to Renzetti, told them what I had, told them what I needed, and they just put them in the mail and sent them to me. I mean, it wasn't a big dollar item for sure, but I'm just saying they stood behind the original vice and just sent me what I needed. Because this jaw that they make right here, I don't think they've changed that drawer at all, except to put the cam on it. And they actually have published the directions for you to change this knob to a cam if you wanted to. So, I mean, to answer, I don't know if that really answers your question, Chris, but I think it really, you've got to spend a few dollars. We had a vise in the in Bass Pro Shop, which was the Peak vise. All right. And in this article, they actually talk about the peak vise, and it's a full rotary, very similar looking to what the Renzetti is.
Mhm.
But there's no comparison to the way that these jaws hold the hook and that vise holds the hook. All right. And another thing about the hook, about the jaws, is you want those jaws to be, I guess it's tempered steel,
Mhm.
because you don't want them chipping. And you put a very small hook in there. If you put it in there improperly, you'll chip the tips of the hook, the jaws, and then
Okay.
and then it's no good anymore at all. So
All right.
anyway, that's my spiel. I'll call Renzetti up tomorrow and tell them that they owe me money.
Well, we appreciate you taking your time out tonight, Bill, and doing that for us.
My pleasure, really. I enjoy tying flies, so it's my
Oh, yeah.
pleasure, and I enjoy trying to share whatever little knowledge I have.
And we definitely appreciate it.
Good.
I guess that pretty much wraps up almost our evening. I don't know if anybody has anything else.
Chris,
Yeah.
do we have anything planned for next month?
I am not sure yet because I am honestly waiting. I've been hearing a lot of rumors, and obviously if it's not from the governor, it just is a rumor. So I'm waiting for Tuesday when he's supposed to speak, and then I guess we can figure something out. But now that we've all done a Zoom meeting, I think if anything does come about it, a shutdown, hopefully not, we can do another Zoom meeting and try to get everybody in a little bit more on it, and we can get a little bit more talking going with everyone. But I myself am waiting for Tuesday before I even talk with Matt about trying to plan something.
Well, the plan is to do an online social on the 12th. That's our plan. That was kind of, I don't see this thing changing. I really don't think we're going to be able to do anything in person for next month.
No, I would agree.
It's going to be kind of a socialized event that I think we're kind of planning on, and then just if somebody wants to do some tying or whatever, it's just going to be kind of like a social hour get together on Zoom.
Very cool. Nice
So
picture
we'll have
of
more
you and your
details
dog.
once we finalize it, but we're planning on the 12th. It's the plan.
The
12th of December.
Yes.
That's Saturday, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one good idea
I'm
might be
supposed
to,
to. Oh, hey, Tom.
yeah, one
Hey,
good
Tom.
idea might be to talk about 6 or 8 lakes or rivers and what would be the right flies to have for each one of those places when we go up there when spring starts.
That's a very good idea.
Because a lot of people have no idea what they should be bringing when we go to a number of different places. And that will always be interesting to everybody in the club to talk about that stuff.
Fly tip Tuesday.
Pardon?
Fly tip Tuesday.
Fly tip Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's on Thursday, fly tip Thursday.
Oh, I'm not hearing well, so forgive me. But Bill, thank you very, very much. You're
Thank you, Tom. Thank
you're
you, Tom.
the absolute expert in the club for fly tying and what we
Hey,
can
well,
do. And the other good thing for you is we still have about 7 million more flies that you could teach us to tie. So
first of all, we got a lot of good fly tyers in the club. I'm not the
I
only
know we do, but we only have one Bill. So
and the other thing is, I'll be happy. If there's something else you guys want to see, I'd be happy to do it. We got this thing working now, and I finally got my little my convertible arm, and give this one back to Matt, and I think it worked pretty good. You think so, Matt?
oh.
Yeah, it worked great. I think it worked great from what I could tell. Everybody else, what did you guys think of the video quality of the tying?
This is
Superb.
great.
Good.
It was
That
good.
was really good.
It was just done with my iPhone, and it's an iPhone 6, I think, actually.
We went
And
through
it
a
was-
lot of iteration to get to this method.
Yeah, well, I should mention this to everybody so everybody knows. I didn't do much to try to get this thing off the ground. It was really Matt and Abby who worked, I guess, with me on, I don't know what that, well, on more than one evening to try to get this whole thing set up so that we can get it so that it was, so that you can see what was going on. You guys did a great job, and I appreciate what you did. It was a lot of good help. There's no,
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Matt.
yeah, they
Hey,
really
good
deserve
job,
it.
guys.
They deserve to thank you for it because the way we had it going the other day, it would have been a waste of time, I think.
Yeah, hard to see.
Hard to see. Yeah, this really worked out good, except I kept hitting the camera every so often. So I saw
It's easy.
a couple of heads. Of course, saw a couple of heads going up and down while the camera was going up and down, right? But no, anyway, it was good. It was very good.
Well, I think for our first official club Zoom, it was very successful.
I think it worked out very well. I think it did. And I had passed some information along to some people about a fellow who just put a presentation on for Long Island's Trout Unlimited called Tim Camisa. And you can see him on YouTube and whatnot. And the presentation he did for them only cost $200.
Yeah, I
I'll
was
say
gonna
only
reach out to
$200.
him, in fact,
Yes.
also.
And he's got a number of different presentations that he does.
Yeah, I have his email down, so I was gonna reach out to him and see what we can get lined up maybe for early next year.
Yeah,
Matt, he was excellent.
Yeah, Tom, you saw it, right?
I saw it and he was excellent. He gave
Yeah, I
it,
was on it as
he
well.
had everybody's attention for the whole thing. He went through, he's organized.
And
He had
what I
great-
found to be particularly interesting was that he, if anybody's ever watched his fly tying videos, and I guess I'm just as much as fault as anybody, because he was a math teacher and so was I. And being a teacher, we like to talk a lot. So, and when he does his fly tying stuff on the video on YouTube, sometimes to tie a zebra midge, it takes 15 minutes to actually tie it. So he does like to talk, but he was very good the other night. He didn't go off tangent.
No, it was all
Tim
about.
Camisa does not have, like Kelly Gallup has, 30 minutes of Kelly Gallup's tutorials, and he hadn't even started tying the fly yet.
You're right. Yeah, right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Well, Wayne, he's the same way, right?
Thank you so much, Bill. Maybe
You're
the
welcome.
next time I'll set up and show you my Norvise. That's a true rotary.
Now that's it. Now that's a true one. I got my Norvise sitting behind me over here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right over here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wayne,
That was a
Wayne,
great
you
I
should
love
tie
the
your.
Norvise. I've also got a
winning fly
Traveler,
from the
but
fly tying contest.
You like the Norvise? I like to see you use it. Yeah, that would be great.
I tie a lot of streamers. I love streamers. So the
Yeah.
Norvise is really good for that.
That is good. You're right. Right. Very good. Great.
Well, I'll tell you guys one sad thing that I just got this week, and that is on the national level, there's only going to be one fly fishing show on TV this year.
On TV?
Yeah. Yep. The guys that have run them in the past years, and there's been a few, they only could get enough sponsorship to run one TV show. So it's
Really?
kind of a shame. It really is. So,
Are you talking about Deep Fly Fishing Show, the one that usually is up in
well,
Pleasant?
mine we couldn't get any sponsorship for this year. We got like 3 of them to run a TV show on and get enough money for it. You need right now, the way it's running, about $800 worth of sponsors.
Wow,
And,
really?
yeah, and we couldn't get anywhere near it. So it's kind of a shame. But who knows what'll happen? It might get people may want to do it again. Who knows? But I think it's pretty sad. And I don't even know whose show got the sponsorship. They won't tell us. So
Really?
yeah, it's a shame. But I'm hoping